Good morning to all of you. Today we will discuss the various surgical management of COPD. As we know, COPD is a common preventable and treatable disease affecting about 251 million of people worldwide and accounting for 5% of all deaths. We know that COPD involves all the components of lung, like if it is involving parenchyma and alveoli, it will cause emphysema. If it is involving airways, it will cause obstructive bronchiolitis, and if it is involving vessels, it will result into pulmonary artery hypertension. Mostly the COPD is managed with drugs, but in some cases we may need to go for surgical options. So today we will limit our discussion to surgical management. These are the various surgical procedures which can be used. The lung volume reduction surgery, which can be done by VATS or bronchoscopic route, bulectomy or lung transplantation. So we will discuss one by one. Next, bulectomy. So first of all, what is bulla? Bulla is an air containing space which is more than 1 centimeter in diameter and which is formed by the destruction of the airways distal to the terminal bronchiole. If the bulla is associated with emphysematous area in the adjacent lung, it is called as bullous emphysema. If the adjacent lung is normal, it is called bullous lung disease. So this is the difference between bullous lung disease and bullous emphysema. And it is said that for significant result, bulla must occupy 30 to 50% of the hemithorax. That means the result of the bulectomy will be better if the bulla is occupying at least 1/3 of the pulmonary parenchyma. What are the indications for bulectomy? First is dyspnea due to compression of the adjacent lung. If the patient is having hemoptysis, if the patient is having recurrent pneumothorax or recurrent pulmonary infections. Next, what are the contraindications of bulectomy? If the bulla are multiple and small in size, if patient is having hypercapnia or decreased DLCO, if the FEV1 is less than 40% or less than 500 ml, if the patient is having cor pulmonale, if the patient is having advanced emphysema in the non-bullous adjacent lung, that is bullous emphysema, and if the patient is having more than 50 years of age, then in these cases bulectomy should not be performed. Next, lung transplantation. We know COPD is the most common cause of bilateral lung transplantation. The various indications are patient less than 65 years of age, FEV1 less than 25%, that means severe COPD. Patient is having severe COPD. Patient is having associated purulent obstructive lung disease like bronchiectasis, associated PAH, and non-upper lobe emphysema with low exercise capacity. And the contraindications are patient HIV or HBs antigen positive, positive malignancy detected within last 2 years, musculoskeletal diseases, and dysfunction of extrathoracic organs. So these are the various indications and contraindications of lung transplantation. Next. Now the main topic, lung volume reduction surgery. What we do in lung volume reduction surgery, we use the staplers to perform the resection of 20 to 30% of the bilateral lung apex. That means about 1/3 of the lung parenchyma in the upper lobes are resected bilaterally. It can be done via VATS or median sternotomy route. The National Emphysema Treatment Trial showed that in a properly selected patient of COPD showing heterogeneous emphysema in upper lobes, the results of LVRS was good. The survival was better. The quality of life was better. know the definition of heterogeneous emphysema. What is homogeneous emphysema? What is heterogeneous emphysema? Heterogeneous emphysema is a term to detect the quantity of emphysema. On CT scan, we know that the density of any lesion in the lung is measured in the terms of Hounsfield unit. So, and we know the air is considered as having a value of minus 950 HU. So, in cases of emphysema, because there is air trapping, because there is increase in the lung volumes, the HU unit further decreases. It may be say near about minus 975, minus 980. Okay, so we measure the difference of HU between upper lobes and lower lobes. Say in a patient suffering from COPD, the left upper lobe is showing HU around minus 970, minus 980, and left lower lobe is showing HU minus 1000. So its difference should be more than 25% to be labeled it as heterogeneous emphysema. If the difference is less than 25%, it is called homogeneous emphysema. So LVRS is indicated if the person is having heterogeneous emphysema. So various indications of LVRS are bilateral upper lobe involvement, heterogeneous emphysema, and the patient is having low exercise capacity. And contraindications are FEV1 less than 20%. That means patient is having severe COPD. Non-upper lobe emphysema, patient is having dependent part emphysema, high exercise capacity, and presence of chest wall deformities. So these are the various contraindications. Next. Now question arises, what is the basis of LVRS? How the patient will get benefited from the LVRS surgery? We know that in COPD, in emphysema, there is expiratory airflow obstruction. That means air is able to gain entry during inspiration, but the same amount of air cannot get exit during expiration because of airflow limitation. Because the problem is lying in the small airways. Because the lungs are floppy, the elastic recoil is decreased. So, when there is air trapping, when there is hyperinflation, the diaphragm will be pushed inferiorly, and it will be the shape will be flattened. We know that diaphragm is a very important inspiratory muscle. So, whenever it is in the dome shape, the tension generated by the diaphragm will be best, and when it is flattened, the tension will be lower. So diaphragm will not work as a chief inspiratory muscle, as an effective inspiratory muscle, if it is flattened, if it is low placed. What we are doing in LVRS, we are resecting out some of the emphysematous part of the lung that is occupying the volume, some of the volume of the hemithorax, but it is not taking part into the ventilation, into the diffusion of the gases. So when we resect some part of the lung that is diseased, the volume occupied by the remaining lung will be expanded. The diaphragm will be pushed upwards. It will achieve its dome-shaped shape. So it will now work as an efficient inspiratory muscle. So this is the first benefit we will get from the LVRS. Second is, whatever amount of air is entering into that emphysematous area, it is not taking part into the diffusion of the gases, because of the COPD, the vessels are destroyed in that particular area. So that area is considered as having vested ventilation. Okay. So when we resect out this area, the air that was initially entering into that diseased part, now it will enter into the less affected lung or normal lung. So the VQ mismatch will be less. There will be better match between the ventilation and the perfusion. And third, with the help of LVRS, there is improvement in the elastic recoil pressure of the lung, which will increase the expiratory flow rate. ठीक है, तो air trapping will be less. So these are the basics how the patient will get benefit from the LVRS. Next. So now we will discuss the various methods by which we can achieve LVRS with the help of bronchoscopy. So we are having endobronchial or intrabronchial valves. We are having lung volume reduction coils. We are having bronchoscopic thermal vapor ablation. We are having various lung sealants and biological LVRS methods. Rejuven air system, bronchial rheoplasty. This is rheoplasty actually, and targeted lung denervation. So today we are discussing the various surgical methods for treatment of COPD, and that are done with the help of bronchoscopy. So these are the various bronchoscopic methods for LVRS. Next. So first is endobronchial valve. The basic idea, the basic method how these endobronchial valves work is that they allow unidirectional flow of the air. That is, when these valves are placed in any segmental or lobar bronchi, the entry of the air into that particular disease segment during inspiration is checked, while the exit of the air from the disease segment into the atmosphere during expiration, it is not checked, it is not inhibited. So with time, all the air that is present in the disease part, it will be exited, and that area of the diseased lung will collapse. So this is the Zephyr valve, Z-E-P-H-Y-R, Zephyr valve. It is manufactured by Pulmonex Incorporation company based in USA. This valve contains a silicone valve. These are nitinol self-retaining container, and over this wrap is a membrane. So when this valve, this implant is deployed with the help of bronchoscopy in the particular segmental or subsegmental bronchi, the valve which is present here, it will check the air entry into that disease segment or subsegment during inspiration, but the expiration is unchecked. So the air gradually comes out from that disease or emphysematous segment, and that part of the lung will collapse. The various complications of endobronchial valve placement are most commonly pneumothorax. It is seen in about 4.2 to 29.2% of cases. It most commonly occurs within 2 days of after the procedure. And the mechanism why pneumothorax occurs after endobronchial valve placement is the first, when there is collapse of that particular segment, it will raise the lung pressure, resulting into pneumothorax. Second, there might be rupture of the pre-existing bulla after this procedure, and third, there might be rupture of lung parenchyma, which is weak due to pre-existing adhesions. But it is a safer procedure. Second complication is some patients may develop COPD exacerbation after this procedure. Pneumonia can be seen and valve dislodgement can be seen after the procedure. So here is a small video which showing how the endobronchial valve works. So this is the disease part in the upper airway, upper part of the lung. With the help of bronchoscope, this Zephyr valve is now placed into this bronchus. Now the air is not able to gain entry into this disease segment, but the exit is unchecked. We can deploy multiple intrabronchial valve depending upon the site of involvement. Suppose if the patient is having right upper lobe emphysema, all the three segments, anterior, apical and posterior, all three are involved by the emphysema, then 3 valves can be placed in each of the segmental bronchus. If the anterior and apical segments are diseased, then you may need 2 valve placement. intrabronchial valve, the mechanism is the same, the basic mechanism is the same, but it is slightly different in the shape as compared to the endobronchial or Zephyr valve. This valve is called spiration intrabronchial valve. It is having 6 Nidelorn treads. These are 6 Nidelorn treads. And over here is the polyurethane membrane. So when this valve is deployed in a particular segmental or segmental bronchus, the air entry will be checked, but the air exit or any secretions that are present into that diseased area, they can come out from that particular segment. So with the help of bronchoscope, this spiration intrabronchial valve is now being placed. The air is gain entry in other segment, but not in that particular segment. But the air which is present in that disease segment can come out during the expiration. The secretions can come out from this segment during expiration, like this. So this disease part in time will get collapsed. You can place multiple intrabronchial valve depending upon the various sites of the involvement by the emphysema. Now collateral ventilation is considered as a necessity for good outcome for these various valve procedure. What is the collateral ventilation? Collateral ventilation is the passage of gases from one area of the lung to another area through non-anatomic pathways. That means, for example, we know that right upper lobe is separated by the right middle lobe with the help of right minor fissure or horizontal fissure. Normally, there are fissure defects in about more than 80% of persons, through which air can directly move from the right upper lobe to the right middle lobe. But what happens in normal persons? In normal persons, the pressure in these collateral pathway is very high. So, in normal persons, despite the defect being present in the horizontal fissure, there is absence of collateral ventilation. But in emphysematous patients, this resistance is low. The resistance in these collateral pathways are very low. So, in such cases, collateral ventilation can occur from right upper lobe to right middle lobe or right middle lobe to right upper lobe. So, absence of collateral ventilation should be there so as to get a better outcome after any endobronchial valve placement procedure. It has been shown that oblique fissure defects are seen in about 21 to 30% of normal persons, and right horizontal fissure defects are seen in up to 80% of patients. So, what will happen if in a patient suffering from COPD, we don't consider collateral ventilation before placing the endobronchial valve or intrabronchial valve? We have placed Zephyr valve in right upper lobe bronchus, and we are hoping that this right upper lobe will collapse. But due to presence of this collateral ventilation, the air might enter from right middle lobe into the right upper lobe. So the chances of failure will be higher. So we should assess whether the fissure is intact, whether the fissure is having any defect. So there are two methods. First is Chartis pulmonary assessment system, which is a bronchoscopy based technique, and qualitative CT fissure analysis, which is a CT scan based technique. Chartis pulmonary assessment system, in this system we perform bronchoscopy and we pass a specialized catheter. It is a single use catheter. It has got a tip balloon on its tip. During the procedure, during the bronchoscopy, we pass this catheter to that particular segments. Say I am planning for placement of endobronchial valve in right upper lobe. So I will do bronchoscopy and put the tip of my bronchoscope into the right upper lobe. Then this catheter is passed through the working channel of the bronchoscope. The balloon is inflated. Then we take out the air, we do suction of whatever amount of air is present in the right upper lobe. Normally, if there is absence of collateral ventilation, whatever amount of air is present in the right upper lobe, it will be sucked and the flow ceases gradually and the resistance will be increased because there is no ventilation, no collateral ventilation between right upper lobe and right middle lobe. But if there is presence of collateral ventilation between RUL and RML, the air will continue to come out on suctioning and the flow will be present, flow will be remain present and the resistance will be, it will not increase. So, this is the bronchoscopic method, how we assess the presence of collateral ventilation. And on CT scan, in the hands of very experienced radiologist, we can measure whether the whether the fissure is intact in its whole length or not. And it has been shown that if the fissure integrity is seen more than 95% of its length, then no further assessment is needed. The patient will get benefit with the procedure. If the fissure is intact up to less than 75% of its length, then the chances of the EB, the intrabronchial or endobronchial wall will be higher, around 100%. And if the integrity is between 75 to 90%, then this patient needs further assessment with the help of Chartis pulmonary system. Next. This is the Chartis pulmonary system, and this is the single-use catheter with the balloon on its tip. This balloon is inflated in that particular segment, and then we measure the airflow and the resistance. If there is absence of collateral ventilation, flow will cease, flow will decrease, and resistance will be higher. If there is presence of collateral ventilation, flow will not decrease, resistance will remain low. Okay? Next. Third is the deployment of lung volume reduction coils. So this is a lung volume reduction coil. It is having super elastic property. During the bronchoscopy, it is deployed in that particular segmental or subsegmental bronchi in a straight form. But after full deployment, it comes to its natural coil form. And how these lung volume reduction coils act? They act by mechanically compressing the diseased emphysematous lung parenchyma. It improves elastic recoil and restores radial suspension of airways, thereby reduces the airway resistance, hence air trapping and hyperinflation. These coils may be placed in various subsegmental bronchi depending upon the involvement of the emphysematous areas. Advantage of this coil is that it is independent of presence of collateral ventilation because it is mechanically compressing that particular disease segment, and it can be used in heterogeneous and homogeneous both group. We have seen that the various valve, endobronchial or intrabronchial valve, they are used when the patient is having heterogeneous emphysema. But these coils can be used in patients having hetero or homogeneous both groups. Next. So this is the video of how the lung volume reduction coils are deployed. It is a fluoroscopic guided procedure. So with the help of bronchoscope, these coils are inserted into that particular segmental or subsegmental bronchi, and after its deployment, they retain their coil shape. So we can use multiple coils in multiple segments. Next procedure is bronchoscopic thermal vapor ablation. In this method, we use the water heat vapors, steam, in the form of steam, in the particular segment. With the help of bronchoscope, the heated water vapor is distilled, it is administered, this water vapor will cause local inflammation in that particular segment, which will heal by fibrosis. So this procedure will take some time to get good results, because the inflammation followed by fibrosis, it may take some weeks to months. Advantage of this BTVA procedure is that it is independent of collateral ventilation. It is a permanent process. That particular segment or lobe will be scarred, will be fibrosed. No, there is no metal implantation in the lungs in this procedure, and less chances of pneumothorax, because I said that while doing endobronchial valve procedure, there is rapid changes in the lung pressure, rapid changes in the lung volume, which results into the occurrence of pneumothorax. But BTVA procedure, because the fibrosis will take some time to develop, may take around weeks to months, so there are less chances of pneumothorax. And the complications are same. Patient may have some COPD exacerbations, and some episodes of pneumonia can be seen. Here is a video of BTVA procedure. So through the help of bronchoscope, this specialized balloon is there, and with the help of this balloon, the steam is administered through the various disease part of the lungs. So in time, it will result into the scarring of that particular area, which will result into the collapse of that particular disease segment. So when there is fibrosis, the collapse of the right upper lobe will be there, and hence the middle and lower lobe will expand. Further, we are having various lung sealants and biologicals which can be used to obstruct that particular diseased airway, that particular disease segment. We are having Amiseal emphysematous lung sealant, which is composed of aminated polyphenol alcohol and glutaraldehyde. When this compound is mixed with air, it generates foam, and this foam causes local inflammation and later on fibrosis, which will result into collapse of that disease segment. Autologous blood can be used, and we can also use fibrin glue, which contains fibrinogen and thrombin. So all these methods basically result into inflammation followed by fibrosis of that particular emphysematous area, with resultant decrease in its size. Next, we are having Risovan air system. In this system, with the help of bronchoscope, we administer liquid nitrogen in a spray form, which is having a temperature of minus 196 degree. This system was initially used for the management of chronic bronchitis patients, but nowadays there are some reports which have used this system in the treatment of emphysema. So basic idea is the same. You induce fibrosis so as to collapse that particular area. The bronchial rhinoplasty uses pulse electric fields to that particular segment, which will result into scarring, inflammation and scarring of that particular segment. And targeted lung denervation. We know that parasympathetic system causes bronchoconstriction. So in this method, the parasympathetic nerves that are supplying that particular disease segment are ablated with the use of radio frequency waves. So there will be less bronchoconstriction. There will be bronchodilation with the help of sympathetic system. So this is the small video of the next technique is airway bypass stents. We know that collateral ventilation is a hindrance for the success of various endobronchial valve placement procedure. But the same collateral ventilation can be used as a therapy for emphysema. What happens? What happens in emphysema? that COPD is mainly a small airway disease affecting the small airway less than 2 mm in diameter. So suppose we are having this area of emphysema. Now the gas is trapped in this area. What we do in airway bypass stent, we make a fenestration in this more central airway. These are the small airways. These small airway are collapsed during the expiration, resulting into the air trapping. So what we are doing in airway bypass stent procedure, we are making a fenestration. We are making holes in the relatively more central airway, so that air, because of collateral ventilation, air can be directly passed through this stent into the larger airways. So the small airways during expiration, the small airway are collapsed, but still whatever amount of air is present in this trapped area, in this hyperinflated lung, will be exited through this airway bypass stent. So this area gradually collapses. If this stent was not placed here, then because of small airway obstruction, there will be more and more air trapping. But now, with the help of this stent, whatever amount of emphysematous air is present in this area can go out from this stent into the atmosphere. So here we are using the collateral ventilation as a therapy for the emphysema. So what we are doing in this procedure, with the help of bronchoscope, we first measure whether there is presence of any vessel in this area or not. So here is the vessel, so we will not make a hole in this area. Next. Now, this area is devoid of any vessel. So we are making a fenestration in this area, and we place a stent in this area. Now whatever amount of air is present throughout, it will come into from that particular stent. So this is the stent, this is the normal bronchi, and this is the stent placed in this airway. So whatever amount of air present in the emphysematous area, it is coming out from this stent. So these are the various bronchoscopic guided lung volume reduction procedures which can be used as a personalized treatment of a patient suffering from the COPD. It is not a generalized procedure. The patient must fulfill some criteria to get one or other procedure to get benefit. Okay, thank you.